Okay, guys, we're back from commercial break with Waylon Martin. Waylon, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, guys. How about yourselves?
Always good, man. So, for the people out there that haven't heard about you, give us a quick little bio introduction about yourself.
Bio introduction about myself. Well, my name is Waylon Martin. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I got into bodybuilding around 18 years old, but I competed when I was 19 as a natural bodybuilder. I did that for a while, and then I got into the more serious stuff in the NPC, and then did some writing for RX Muscles, some stuff with RX Muscles, some stuff with Blackstone Labs, and then here we are. I have a couple companies. I have a tanning company, Martan. I also have like media websites, YouTube channels. Those are come and go. Like I kind of do them when I get bored, but yeah. So here we are.
So that was actually the biggest reason why Austin mentioned having you on, because you know kind of everything that's going on in the bodybuilding world, all the news, all the, I don't know if you want to call it gossip, but everything that's really going on the bodybuilding side of things, and you kind of have a different viewpoint. So at least from your perspective, let's just kind of start off with what the hell's going on in bodybuilding. I know for myself, and probably Austin too, we've both been more on the busy side of things, so haven't really had time to keep up with everything.
Well, I mean, we've had the New York Pro, which has in some implications going into the future, and we've had the recent content, you know, the Arnold, etc. And so this year, I mean, the thing is, guys, is there anything this year that has been like shocking to you? Like this kind of feels like a repeat episode of sorts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very, very much so repeat. I mean, I went to the Arnold finals. My wife and I always go every year, and that was really lackluster. I mean,
how was the 212 at that show?
It was good. It was typical, though. I mean, I think the 212 last weekend was a lot better. But
yeah.
But I mean, other than Cedric, you know, finally, I guess, quote unquote, nailing it a little bit more. But I mean, competition-wise, it was kind of shallow. But Alex and I don't do a ton of show recap stuff, but let's talk about the New York Pro a little bit, because that was, to me, that was the most exciting show of the year so far.
Definitely, in my opinion as well. What about yours, Alex?
You know, I honestly didn't even get a chance to watch it. I've been today and tomorrow.
Have you seen pictures?
What's that?
Have you seen pictures?
I only saw one, and I saw that Sergio won, but I really didn't get a chance to go through and break down the comparisons. But it was kind of a shock to me that out of all the physiques that stepped on stage, that actually he won, because I didn't have any real expectation of him going into the show.
Was that his first professional show?
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
So he came out and he won the New York Pro. That's very impressive. He also that his come up was pretty intense too, because he didn't initially like just win at nationals. He got like 10th place or something like that as a super heavyweight. I remember they did an interview with him largely because of his name, but he was impressive. He just wasn't dialed in. And then the next show after that, he turned pro. Austin, did you see his pictures from the contest or anything like that?
Yeah, I saw. Admittedly, since I've been basically doing endless hours of cardio, I've been looking.
Yeah, you have your contest coming up, right? You're in the zone right now.
Yeah, so of course that stuff kind of, if I'm not doing emails and stuff while I'm doing cardio, then I'll look at show results and stuff like that. So I did look at a pretty extensive amount of stuff from the show. I thought that, I don't know, I mean, I guess you can always make an argument one way or the other, but I just felt that it was just kind of a name game, you know, like a lot of shows, I guess you could say, are like that. But, and even in the 212, to be completely honest, I thought Ronnie Rocco winning was kind of...
Yeah, Ronnie... Yeah. He was a little weird. Well, the thing is, Ronnie Rocco had, like, diabetes, so the fact that he's still able to win shows is pretty crazy. But,
well, yeah, he... And, I mean, he's obviously is a 212 competitor by, like, the structurally and stuff. But I don't know, man. I see the photos, and I probably would have put him maybe third at best. And Sergio, I mean... So the thing about judging in any bodybuilding show is if they make an argument for one, let's say they reward conditioning, which they were going to argue that they rewarded him over De La Rosa because he was a little bit sharper. So, okay, that's fine. That's completely fine. I'm not going to argue with that. But at the same time, then you have guys finishing like 6th place, Hassan, and you have Akeem ahead of him who was soft as hell.
Here's my thing on Hassan's his name, right? The 6th place guy.
Yeah, other than him not having quite enough size yet. I mean,
my knock on him, because what show did he turn? He was kind of a surprise. Like when he turned pro, he definitely deserved it. He looked great, but I can't remember at what show he turned pro. This was one of his first shows, right? As a pro.
Yeah. Alex, do you know? Because we had him on. Was it the British UBKF or whatever the hell?
Whatever the hell those letters are. That's where he turned pro at. And,
okay.
And like you guys said, I mean, he's got an amazing physique. He's just got to get a little bit more size to hang with those guys.
He's got a frame that if he gets more arms and he gets a little bit more lats, like if he just some cheap tricks, he can go up the ranks pretty quickly. But the way he hits, he hits the front double bicep like Sean Roden does, but he doesn't have Sean Roden's physique quite yet. I don't even know if he has that type of potential, but he definitely has a different look, and I like the aesthetic of it. I hope he can maintain that going forward. So that's definitely a good outing for him. But
yeah, I mean, he's a super cool guy too. When we had him on, he was a nice guy, and I think Aceto dialed him in pretty good. I think he worked with Aceto. Chris,
was he working with Aceto?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and so was Sergio.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, as far as I know, Aceto does very basic stuff. Like it's very, so it's interesting to see the type of consistency. He seems like one of those guys that if you just follow the plan, it's gonna work out like all right. Like it's not gonna go too terrible if you do what he says.
Well, the thing is though too is I'm pretty sure he worked with De La Rosa.
Oh, did he?
So what gets me is I think he's a really smart guy, but I almost think that, and I hate to say this because everyone's probably gonna fucking flame the shit out of me for it, but it's if I feel like a guy's at that level, and if you've worked with them repetitively, if you're only dialing in 50% of the guys, it's maybe this guy doesn't need the same thing as this guy. I feel like maybe that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, he's got an approach. Exactly. He's got his formula that works, and I'm sure there's a couple variables that he changes with people, but he's running off of 1995 information. So a lot of those
that's the best way to say it.
It's what it is. It's kind of the pre-form, era. And it's one of those which is for better or worse. But that's the big knock on him is that it's going to be consistent, but is it going to be 100% ever for a guy? I don't know necessarily,
Well, I know now that I'm going to have a bunch of people fucking rioting outside my house.
Yeah, exactly. Danger zone. That's all right.
Well, it's funny because Austin, I know, you and me have had enough people on the show that are clients of Chris's, or, we're working with clients that used to work with Chris, or, some combination of the two. And it's always pretty much the same story where these guys go to Chris because he puts their minds at ease. And it seems like that's really the big reason why they're so successful. They just take that stress away.
Aceto is, there's a quote from him where it's he's like, when my life is getting hectic, I get more focused, He's one of these guys that he seems like the coolest guy, most chill dude out there, he's not going to start a fight with anyone unless they deserve it, or, so I think he's a good captain of the ship type guy to keep these guys in check. And that was something with McMillan this year that I was really impressed with, was that McMillan years ago, one of my friends used to manage McMillan, and he was having a breakdown at, I believe it was the 2014 Olympia. And what year was it he didn't show up to stage at all?
Was it 14? It was 14 or 15.
I think it was 14 or 15. And I was going out to Vegas to stay with him, hang out with Ben for a couple days, but I came in the day after. So they were everything would have been started. So I was coming in a day too late. And he just went off the rocker for that contest. And that's the thing is, he's the type of guy where he's gotten such extreme anxiety and stuff like that it's he's so good if he just would do what the fuck he needs to do. It's his potential is limitless. However, I don't think he's ever going to touch Phil Heath. I think he was not in shape. he was super impressive. Like, his lines at the Arnold were very impressive, but his actual conditioning was a little bit lackluster. Like, it was good for Cedric, but like his glutes, for example, weren't as dialed in as they could be. And like, okay, I hate to say this, but like Ben White's one who told me this. You know, black people have more skin in their glutes typically, and so he doesn't need to be necessarily as dialed in. However, we've seen with a guy like Ronnie Coleman at like peak Ronnie Coleman, I don't know what years you want to say, but like striated head to toe. You know, so if Cedric could ever get in that type of shape, he could be the top guy, but I don't think he's ever going to get in that type of shape. And I don't think that Aceto is going to necessarily be the guy to get them there. I don't know if anyone necessarily would. It might just be luck at this point. But
well, it's one of those things like people say, oh, when he finally nails it. I'm like, he probably would have nailed it already if it was going to happen.
And the thing with bodybuilding, too, is exactly. He's been doing it long enough. And there's windows too, you know, like these guys, if you come up at a certain rate, your body's going to improve at a certain rate. You have windows, you have optimal years and everything like that, and those windows close. And I think a lot of these guys, they miss their window. And then, you know, so if he had 3 years ago maybe been able to win the Arnold, you know, and he very well could have if things had gone a little differently, back then especially. So it's like one of those things that I think the Arnold's a huge win for him, but from this point forward, I don't know if he's really gonna. How much better can he do? You know, you win the Arnold, which is debatably, in name at least, the second biggest show. So it's like, what's that? Is he gonna beat Phil Heath? I doubt it. You know.
Yeah.
I think maybe they're setting Sergio up to not beat Phil, but maybe eventually replace him or something like that. I could see that storyline. I like Sergio. I like his like mentality and everything like that, and he does have a good physique. I think it's like an apples and oranges type deal, and I don't prefer his shape per se. However, I could see why, because the thing is, the people that judge this stuff, it's very, they like storylines as well. So of course you're going to judge you based off of the physique that's there, but there's legend and whatnot, and they're trying to market their own thing. And I think a guy like Sergio Oliva, and he deserved it. I felt like he deserved to win New York. He was very impressive, especially considering his first pro show. A lot of pressure. But his potential, I don't know. I'm wondering if Phil Heath is ever going to be able to be beat or not. Like if he's going to be beat within the next 3 years.
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, looking at everyone right now and just given the past and how everything's gone, I mean, I don't like Phil Heath as a person. I don't follow him. I just don't like him. But you can't argue with his physique. Like the last year, he brought it. I mean, I really just don't see anybody touching him until he retires.
Yeah, that, you know, with Phil, it's one of those things where obviously he's a great bodybuilder, but it's just like everything's good on him, so he ends up being great, and no one else has everything like he does. However, I think like a guy like Ronnie like had 1 or 2 years where he had that everything type package, and then like a monster like level of like mass on top of it. Versus Phil doesn't need to be that big even because his competition isn't even really that close to him. You know, we've seen guys like Roden challenge him a little bit here and there, but I think Roden's window's passed as well.
Yeah, and especially Dexter's too. I know people are talking about Dexter coming back and winning another Olympia, and I honestly don't think that they would let him win just because his years are numbered. He wouldn't be the next reigning champ for an extended period of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages to having Phil. Dexter does not like to do the marketing stuff personally. Like, he's just a very chill dude. He likes to compete and whatnot. So, Phil's a good ambassador for the sport, too. Debatably, you know, but there could be worse ones.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially in bodybuilding. There's the options that are a little bit, you know. But.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like, the thing about Phil's physique, though, is that he's not as big. He's not a mass monster per se, but when you look at it, there's like in the most muscular, for example, there's just no gaps anywhere.
That exactly. Bodybuilding is one of those things where you subtract from the flaws, you know. And Phil, there's nothing unless you have a guy with like a wide chest, but that's one body part, you know. That's not even the complete package. And that's exactly it. That's exactly it, Austin, is that he's got that there's no knock on him. It's all good. And, you know, and I'm always impressed because he comes in shape, too. It's just a lot of pressure, you know. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you only have to do it one time a year and everything's optimal, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, you still have to do it, you know.
Oh
And,
yeah.
Yeah, well, and you know, and it's like I can't relate to him because on the genetic level, I just and you know, and like the work level, I don't relate to the guy. But the thing is, that's not what matters when you get on stage. Like, you know, right now, like in my prep, for example, what I have to do to get in shape, and a lot of people are like, you know, they say certain things to me. I'm like, you do realize that that doesn't make any difference on show day. The judges aren't going to ask, hey, how much cardio did you have to do, and how low were your calories?
that they only have to look at what's presented to them, you know?
You know, it's like, yeah, it's commendable, and I commend people that get peeled and that have to really work for it. But yeah, it doesn't fucking matter on show day.
Well,
it doesn't make any difference.
Exactly. There was this thread of Boston Lloyd arguing with this guy in Australia who's like a super heavyweight, and the guy was like, I did zero cardio, blah blah blah, and he was ripped head to toe, striated glutes and whatnot, and and it was one of those things where the guy he had his reasons for why he didn't do cardio, and he said it was accounted for and blah blah blah, and I was like, I mean, I get it. That formula for him is what works, you know. But it's like, but Boston was like, this is bullshit, blah 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 blah, and I could see Boston's point too. But a lot of the times, you know, it's just it is. I also think with cardio, people just like to feel the suffering, you know, remind themselves they're alive.
Oh well, yeah, and well, I mean, and a lot of people that have coached, a lot of people. I mean, I know I've had plenty of clients that will actually want, you know, like beg for cardio and shit like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. People like. I mean, people like, you know, some people, some sick bastards. You know, I can get it. I love training. Like that's always going to be like my focus. But I can want to get some good circulation in. You know.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack really quick because I'm actually curious of both your opinions. Let's play this out. So say Phil Heath keeps competing like he says he's going to, and so I think he said like 2020 he's going to hang him up or whatever. So he keeps winning Olympias till he retires. Who's going to take his spot given the crop of people we have now, and not taking into the account someone could transform or there could be some new one on the scene? What do you guys think? Who's the next kind of guy to come in and take that spot?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. So let's see. Who got second last year? Dexter, right?
Yeah, Dexter, and then was it Roden in third?
Or was it Rami or Roden in third? Do you remember, Waylon?
I believe Roden was ahead of Rami, but I could be mistaken.
Okay,
it's not going to be. Well, it's obviously not going to be Dexter. So we can pretty much take him off there. But I mean, if I had to say if just strictly looking at where we're at now in only a few year time frame, I mean, a lot could change in a few years, but let's just assume it's probably going to be relatively similar. I would say, gosh, it would almost have to be Rami. Because I don't think it'll be Roden.
Yeah,
I just feel like Roden he's not slipping, but he's not getting any better. And
Roden's very happy with his life. You know, he's one of the few guys that's made a lot of money in bodybuilding and invested it. And like he grew up in Jamaica, like coming up from like nothing, you know. So he's one of those. He doesn't need to kill himself for this anymore, and he's having a good time with, you know. It's like he's still even a slightly off Sean Roden is still the number 2 or number 3 bodybuilder on the planet. However, I don't think he has that desire to do the things year round that it would take for him to ever really challenge Phil. I think he gave it a big push. Like, remember a couple years ago, he got really big in the off season for a while there. But after that, I mean, he's like had kids and stuff. I think he's just finding his role. I think what he's going to do is he's going to kind of slip into like a Dexter Jackson spot where he just keeps showing up. He doesn't need to be 100% because his 95% is better than most people's 100, you know?
Right.
I could see that. So given that, do you guys think, because I personally love Rami, however you say his name, I love his physique, but I just feel like for whatever reason he's never going to become Mr. Olympia, even though he has everything to make it.
You know, Rami would probably be, in my opinion, the perfect Mr. Olympia at one point or another. And for the reasons that are some of the reasons he might not become Mr. Olympia. Rami is very religious. He's a very devout Muslim, and like to the point like he has like the bruising on his head from when you pray. You put your head to the ground, and like in that culture, it's like a very respected thing because it means you're like honoring the tradition, stuff like that. But he's also like college educated and whatnot, and he's I've met him once in person, like for My Oatmeal was having a thing out in Phoenix with Dennis James, and he was there for the afternoon, and he's just like, it was a week after winning the New York Pro, and I have to say that I've met Phil Heath a week after he won his third Olympia. I met Rami a week after he won the New York, and then I've like hung out with Ben multiple times, and Rami was in a 5X T-shirt, but then had a waistline that was like 32 inches tops. And so he's like one of these guys. Like Phil, you look at and like to the normal person, of course, you're gonna be like, oh gosh, he's huge, blah blah blah. But he doesn't have like that refrigerator box type fucking frame. Versus Rami's got a very unique frame. And then he took his shirt off at one point, and you realize his waistline is just so. It on stage sometimes it looks a little bubbly. It doesn't almost do him service, but it's very tight. And I think that the problem with that is that if you give Rami the go-ahead, you're giving powers outside the United States acknowledgement. All those guys over in Kuwait and everything like that, all those organizations, there's the IPB organizations, the professional league and the amateur league are not huge fans of each other. And so by having an American Mr. Olympia, it kind of maintains home field advantage and whatnot. I'm curious, what I'd be curious to see if ever would happen is like if there was a civil war in the IFBB between the organizations, because there's some weird power structure stuff going on there, where like they'll have the qualifying events for like national qualifying events over there will be in Iran, Russia, these countries that like during diplomatic feuds, like these very weird. So here's my big conspiracy: is I think that potentially Arnold Schwarzenegger is probably the only person that could have a contest that would rival the Olympia. And you go to the Olympia, and it's got about like 40,000 people, but Arnold's Expo has like about 12,000 people, and that's in fucking Columbus. You guys have been out there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not like Columbus in winter time is not someplace you go out to just like chill. Like. So, but no. He's still able to draw a huge crowd and whatnot. Exactly. Besides that contest, and so that's the thing is that the Olympia is an awesome. I like the Olympia more. I prefer the Olympia, but it only has around 50,000 people, and of course, it's more bodybuilding focused, more industry focused, and I think it's more of a party. But there's always been a rift between Santoja or whatever the guy who runs it. Basically, back when Ben Weider was splitting up the organizations, after he died, there's kind of been this weird power struggle because people forget that these are separate organizations that work together. They're not necessarily one organization. And so they have these little splits and rifts in power. And so that's Arnold's events. They were previously, I believe, they were like with Europa or something like that. But think about, because the North Americans, for example, that's an IPV amateur event. That's not an NPC event. So if they were to ever split, there's already contests in place. There's already the system in place where they would, because a lot of those organizations, those new organizations, they don't have a good pro league. They don't have a good amateur. They don't have the feeder system developed. They're trying to make it in 1 year. Versus if these organizations, if the IPV amateur were to split from the professional league, it could pretty much instantly have its own organization. And if it gets a guy like Arnold behind it, you make it because think about it, the Olympia wasn't always the biggest contest in bodybuilding. There's Universe or whatever before that, Mr. World, and so things can change, and so I think we're looking at this weird time in bodybuilding and like in American politics kind of, where we have this American dominance, but there's this growing outside foreign influence. And it's one of those things where we can either work with it and kind of like shape it or get it taken from us, And yeah, that's a big conspiracy of mine that I've been thinking about for a while now. But I've been watching it play out more and more. And it's pretty interesting. Because those guys internationally want to get it in the Olympics and whatnot. Versus we in the U.S. are making no efforts to get it into the Olympic Games. Bodybuilding is actually a regional Olympic sport already in many Southeast Asia, which is one step below the actual Olympic Games. It's North America's, for example, where it's not an amateur Olympic contest. And I believe that's because they know. You guys know with wrestling, maybe Austin, maybe you know a little bit better. Alex, did you wrestle at all or no?
No.
Well, with the wrestling organizations, FILA, I can't remember the organizations, but FILA or something like that. USA Wrestling basically got demolished by the Olympic Games because the Olympic Games is its own organization, and so when you become part of the Olympics, you kind of have to be like their bitch in a little way. And so I feel like the IFBB or the IFBB Pro League NPC, they're very comfortable. They have their organization, and they don't want people to fuck with it, which is respectable in some ways because the opposite of that is Sandoha with the international guys. They have to do drug testing and whatnot, and so there's these like in Australia, for example, at one of the amateur Olympia contests, there was drug testing randomly, and like. It's like still a joke drug testing too, you know. They just pull 3 random guys at a bodybuilding contest. Of course, what do you think's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's because I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get it acknowledged as an Olympic sport. So then their organization will be their amateur organization, because your amateur organization then joins. It works in like with the Olympic Games. I think they're trying to get bodybuilding recognized in the Olympics. And then that way they will have more power over the American IFBB. That's my big conspiracy.
So, I think it's legitimate because if you look at it, you always hear everyone talk about, you know, nobody's going to win the Olympia that's not an American. And, well, let's see. Ronnie, Jay, Dexter. We haven't had one since Dorian. So, right? Is that right?
Well, also, even think about this. In the last decade, it's basically been at the Olympia. It's been in Las Vegas. But before that, it used to be overseas. It wasn't always in the United States. And I feel like that's a little graphic power, too, you know?
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure a couple of them were in the U.S., but I know a lot of them were overseas. And so they moved to Vegas. I mean, it's kind of weird that's even in Vegas, too, because why is it Nevada? Because there's no income tax there, so you can do some loopholes and stuff. But,
yeah.
Hey, there's a reason the Nationals is in Florida and USA's is in Nevada. You know, it's not an accident. Look at the tax codes.
Okay, so let's play that out even further then. So say that conspiracy, because, I mean, now that you're saying it out loud, we're kind of talking back and forth about it. I mean, it makes sense. It really does, and that's always been, I'm sure, in the back of a lot of people's minds. So who's the next American, then, who we think has kind of the next Mr. Olympia physique, or at least worthy physique?
I think maybe they're setting up, like I said, with maybe Sergio Olivia. Maybe he has to win like a Arnold. Maybe he'll go do an Arnold. And if he can win it, you know, because it's that path. Now he's on that path of winning contests. He won his pro qualifying contest. Now he's won the New York Pro, which is the debatably third, like in name, most stat contest of the year. And so where does he go from there? You have the Arnold, and then you have the Olympia. I think that will take him to win an Arnold. It might take him 1 or 2 years, and then after that, he'll be in the Olympia contention. Maybe he'll get second. Maybe he'll decide to focus and do the Olympia, and he'll get like second at the Olympia or something like that to fill the third year. And then eventually Phil comes in off or something like that. You know, I think Phil could, because Phil has 6 Olympias now, right, guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ronnie had 8, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So I could legitimately see Phil just to be a dick going and getting 9 more Olympias.
Just like, to be a dick.
Yeah, you know, just to get 1 more and just to make that history like that, because he's that type of guy. And I respect that about him. But he's a troll like that. But I could see that happening. Then I could see a guy like Sergio. I don't think that, like, I like Dallas McCarver as a fan of bodybuilding. Like, I'm a really huge fan of him. I like that his like heavy deadlifts and stuff like that. I just don't see him ever filling in that role per se. Maybe winning an Arnold, you know, but I don't see him filling that role. I feel like the problem is too with these white guys is they age like sour milk outside. So it's your window. We're talking 3 years down the road from now, you know. So, you know, my expectation is that something's going to happen, and the scene, maybe someone will come up that we don't expect. Like, it's going to be some random X factor that you don't even see. because right now, like you guys are saying, it's Dexter, Roden. Those are older guys. Kai Green, older guys. So we're headed into a new generation is coming, but I'm not necessarily seeing who's going to be leading that pack.
It brings me to another topic. Not that I think he's going to win any Olympias, but what about be a good shakeup for next year at least? What about Dennis Wolf coming back?
I think that's good just for the sake of bodybuilding. Just that he can go through something like that, come off of the shit, do what he needs to do, take the time to recover, and come back better for it. I think that's a great example to set. I think that the expectations are not going to be very high. You know, we saw what he went through.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, in something like that, you just don't know.
I still think he'll look great. However, I think that he's just not going to be able to win. You know, like no one's going to have him winning the Olympia per se.
Oh no, but what about the Arnold though? I think I don't know. You put him next to, let's assume Cedric does it again. I think Cedric beats him probably.
We just haven't seen it, you know? Because the thing about a guy like Cedric is Cedric has very youthful muscle in a lot of ways. He doesn't have to compete that often. He's never really been that dialed in, so he's not straining himself too incredibly hard. And I think that gives him an advantage because he's got that youthful look. I think that, and like even with the drugs and whatnot, it just helps. You know, the older you get, the more worn down you are. And again, this whole theory of the white guys aging like milk. I mean, I think there's just a window. We will have to see. No matter what, I'm interested to see what he looks like, and it will be I will be impressed, I'm sure.
Dude, I'm a fan of Dennis's. Because I think he's just a cool ass dude.
I've never heard a bad thing about him except for the cookie incident.
Yeah. Well, I've met him twice. I met him twice, and he was extremely nice, and just seemed like, you know, if you took his obviously his physique away, he seemed like the most humble, you know, innocent dude that would never talk about himself.
Yeah, he's a cool guy, like a nice guy, which can, you know, that can be a little bit hard to find in bodybuilding sometimes. So,
I really hope he comes back and he doesn't come back with a physique that looks like he had to take off the time that he did because of that reason exactly. I mean, he is. I've never heard a bad thing about him. He's a cool guy. You'd hate to see him come back, you know, almost a shadow of what he used to be.
Yeah, exactly. I would be happy if we saw a 90% Dennis, you know, like just something where he came in looking good and he's not a shadow of himself, but he's, you know, because what does he have to prove at this point? You know, he's really just coming back just because I think it's partially okay. There's financial stuff in bodybuilding, competing for a guy at that level, but I think that's also just like to prove something to himself in part. You know?
Oh yeah, it has to be because I mean, you'd rather want to leave on your own terms, not have something take you out.
Exactly. He knows he's on the back nine of his career, so I think that this is kind of whatever. You know, remember when Dennis James came back and he got like third place or something like that?
Yeah.
I could see something like that where he comes back and he looks good. He's not going to win the show. You could say arguably he won a few shots. It was respectable, but who knows? Then again, who knows? He could win the whole fucking thing, be the best Dennis Wolf we ever saw. You know, this is a crazy universe.
That'd make my fucking day. He comes back, wins an Arnold looking his best, and he just hangs it up and says, "I'm done." You know, that'd be awesome to see.
Double in size. They insert lower on his back. What happened? Got some surgery in China, you know.
That's I know. Like I said, I'm a big fan, and we always go to the Arnold, and my wife likes him too. So there was a few people that I've always wanted to see in person, and he's one of them. And I've met him, but he wasn't competing. So I'm pumped to see him. I got to see the other two, so I wanted to see Branch Warren in person. Everyone always says you have to see him in person, which is totally true. If you've never seen him in person, you know, on stage. And then of course she got to see Kai Green in person at the Arnold, so that was pretty cool.
Kai Green's like fucking Moby Dick to me. I can't find that motherfucker. He's like one of the only guys I haven't like seen. I have a good assessment in my head of what his physique looks like, but I haven't actually seen it, and so I can't really gauge exactly where he's at. You know,
it's wild. I don't know. it's just so much different than anything else up there that it's like, you know, you have
like a troll. He's like a bodybuilding troll. Like, you know, like it's like, because his waist is like gut, like it's still tight and whatnot. Like, I mean, maybe it's getting a little bit off here and there now, but it's he's like he's just not, he's the orange to Phil's apples, you know.
Yeah, and if he would have started winning a string of Olympias and won a bunch in a row, then you could have made, you know, I don't think anyone would have said anything about it, but you know, he's obviously such a contrast from Phil Heath, and obviously that's not what they're looking for.
I think he's in the same place, that spot I was talking about with Roden, where he's finally got some financial stuff set up. He came from like shit, you know, fucking gay for pay is the only reason he's able to afford all the shit. You know, I mean, go look at when those grapefruit videos came out, and then go look at when Kai Green got big as fuck. You know, it's like, oh, what's the secret? Like, you got to do that.
A grapefruit, you know, provides plenty of serostem.
Yeah, exactly. Directly, exactly.
So then what about actually a different guy, Justin Compton? I haven't heard anything from him.
Justin Compton, I think Justin Compton's one of the smartest guys in bodybuilding. And he knows it, and he doesn't really need to even, like, do anything about it, you know? Like, I think Justin Compton's very confident in himself, and I mean, what's he need to do at this point? I think if he can just maintain where he's at and he wins these shows, I mean, you know, the thing with Justin, like, he has aged significantly, but but he's kind of hit a point now where I don't think that's going to he's not going to get much worse in that aspect.
No, I don't think he's going to, like, fall apart drastically or anything.
No, and I think he's incredibly smart with his training and everything like that from the looks of it. And even his supplementation is very calculated, you know? So I can respect that. I'm curious to see, what will be interesting is to see him and Dallas play out and, like, see how their careers, because they're a little bit different in age, but they're very similar. I mean, they're different. They're different physiques too, but they're very comparable in, like, level of competition, you know?
Yeah, I know that the guy that, one of the therapists around here, John Quint, that we had on the show, works on Justin, and has talked about him. And he is extremely smart, and he's not greedy, you know, in that regard. And just, so I think that, I don't know, I don't think he'll age, like you said, the aging thing, I don't think it'll...
I think Compton has a Centopani problem. What I mean by that is that he could win any show he wants to, but he's a little bit too smart necessarily for his own good. And
well, I mean, you could definitely argue it like that, but you could also look at it like you said. I mean, he can get enough media attention, win these, you know, second and third tier shows, do decent at the bigger shows,
always have a contract,
make tons of money, and not die in the process.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that the not dying part is a huge thing. That was something, you know, I've been making fun of Nick Trigili a lot lately on my Facebook account, but he and I started messaging each other, and it started off as threats, but it calmed down, and it was really cool.
Started off as threats.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, those Jersey guys, New York guys, but it was interesting to me because he was talking about his life right now. And he's like, dude, I'm doing this shit. I have a hot girlfriend, and he's like, he's on no drugs. He's like, I'm not killing myself for this shit anymore. Like, I'm enjoying my life, like, you know. And he's like, this came pretty easy to me, and I'm like, dude, you got your little thing, and I mean, it's like, you know, that's his thing. It works for him, and that's, I can totally understand. I think all these guys hit a point with. I think every bodybuilder hits a point, but at the pro level, it's even harder because where you're like, okay, how much I am killing myself at this point, sir. You know, like, it's like maybe not directly direct, but it's like it ain't healthy. You know, like even if it's optimal, if you want to compete at that high of a level, and so these guys all hit that threshold. I think that we have so many missing kidneys in bodybuilding that we don't hear about. We have so many health scares that you don't hear about just because guys like to keep that shit confidential. And that's their right to do so. However, it creates a general ignorance that allows that stuff to keep happening, you know? So that's what I like about like guys like Phil Hernon. Phil Hernon recently came out and admitted that for like the last 15 years he's been battling kidney issues. And
Phil's a fucking dude. I mean, some of the shit he posts is kind of funny. Did you see the video about what the hell, cage free?
What did he say in that one? When he first started posting those, I'm like, this is going to be some old man ranting, and I'm like, this guy's genius.
No, it's hilarious. Search it on Facebook, and he's at the grocery store, and he's just making fun of me. He's like, oh my god, these eggs are cage free. He's like, this butter, it's cage free. And he's like, this bacon, it wasn't raised in a cage. Like, he's going through, and he goes to like fucking like canned shit on the shelf, and he's just making fun of it.
He's got like a very unique life perspective. You know, I like Phil a lot, you know?
Yeah, I mean, people have mixed opinions about him, but it's like, I don't know.
When I was going through like a depression phase and I was being all whiny on Facebook, Phil's one of the few guys who out of nowhere, nothing, just hit me up and was like, hey man, how you doing? Doing all right, blah, blah, blah. Explain to him what was going on. He's like, we've all been there, blah, 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 you know? And it was like, that was a very real moment to me where a guy who I've never actually met but I had a lot of respect for out of the blue hit me up, you know? And so to me personally, I see guys like Dante shitting on Phil and being like, he did this, and they're going back and forth. But to me personally, he's always been cool. And also, I just like his physique, maybe because he's like a white guy that's around my height. But I like his physique as well. He was really underrated in some ways for his time.
Yeah, I don't know. People get too tied up in just fucking bullshit drama and want to knock everyone. It's like, man, I don't have the energy for that shit.
You know, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. I like to, you know, I have to be like selective. I try to be like classy drama. Like, it's like the news drama. Like TMZ, how about that? Like not like making up shit, but like shit. Like, I feel like in some ways the gossip helps give people a perspective that and it's not like you have to be like, oh, well, that's valuable or whatnot, but it's like, oh, that's going on, like this happens in that way. Like, a lot of times people like, I mean, I have my theories about what's going on in the Mideast and like how they're able to pay for all that stuff and whatnot, and like people, the thing is people, it's amazing, you guys understand it, like when you get into the sport, you're definitely not thinking about all the evil shit, you know, you're like thinking about like, I want to get big, I want to have muscle, I want to be impressive, I want to be more confident, you know? And then you don't realize, like, oh, it's like, there's, like, fucking gay for pay sponsors. Like, you know, like, if you want to pay for HGH at a certain level, you got to do some shit, you know? And so, it's a weird, that's one of my favorite, I mean, what is your guys' opinion on that? That's one of my favorite things, though, in some ways, that this is such a dark industry. It welcomes everyone, you know, and it brings out the best and worst of people in some ways. But
see, it's kind of funny because my perspective on all of it is, first of all, I don't care what anybody does as long as they're happy. Cool, go crazy. Exactly. I don't care if it's good, it's bad, whatever. And then the other perspective on things is, I tend to kind of live in my own little world. So if something's negative and I don't like it, I'm just not going to be around it. You know, plain and simple. I just close my eyes, put my head in the sand kind of thing. That's why I don't watch the news anymore, because you always hear that, whatever, a family of 5 got shot and raped, or it's always bad news, and I just hate being around that kind of negativity, you know?
Well, because it's not even news necessarily. What they're doing is they're just feeding into your instincts. They know that if a dead child is going to ring a bell in your head, the automatic, you know? So it's just one of those things where they're not even necessarily presenting important. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, sorry to the people that die, whatnot, but, like, they're not presenting... you know, it's you can only, one of the smartest guys I know, he's a World Bank advisor or whatever, I trained him at the U of A, and he's like, the older you get, the more you realize you only control so much, and it's just one of those things that, like, you just have your little world, you know, and you influence stuff, but you can't let that hit you, you can't let it hit home too much.
That was a big, almost exactly what one really close friend of mine told me at the end of my last prep, or supposed prep, and it was just the fact that, you know...
Why supposed prep? Why supposedly?
So I was sick multiple times throughout the prep.
Gotcha.
And then during peak week, I ended up getting the flu literally the Monday before, or the Monday of peak week.
It's terrible when you're dieting. I mean, you're literally killing yourself when you're dieting. Like, I mean, let's think about it, guys. It's anorexia optimized.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, so
it's a planned anorexia.
Exactly, and so your immune system's very, like, a lot of shit can go wrong. That's the thing about it, is that it's awesome when everything lines up, but statistically speaking, you know, even if things all go right, you're gonna probably have that sucks. You know, it sucks because, and that's what something Craig Titus said in, like, his Undercover Pro interviews, is he's like, that's one of the least favorite things about bodybuilding, is that everything up until a week out can be like literally, and you know, a lot of people use that as an excuse, you know, but then that's at the same time, there's legitimately times when, like, shit like that happens, and, like, it just, shit goes right when it should have gone left. You know, I did my last contest, I did this, like, 4-week diet, like being a jackass kind of, and but in theory it could have worked. However, the gear I had was, like, way too, it caused some type of, like, shock, like inflammation and shit like that, and so my body, like, I feel like I did not get blood levels or anything like this at this time. And, like, I got edema or whatever, like the swelling of the ankles and whatnot.
Yeah.
And my whole body, and I think what was happening was that I was taking all these cutting drugs, quote drugs, and I was getting a huge progesterone response. And so then combine that with, like, whatever was in the gear that was causing, like, all that shit to go south. And it's just one of those things where then your math is off. So even though I was doing the right calories and losing in a certain way, if you have that much estrogen feedback going in, it just, it makes it you less efficient, you know, just in general. So it's really amazing. I mean, that was one of the things, like, I loved the natural bodybuilding because you could optimize stuff, and it is just as hard in theory, you know, besides, like, the stabbing yourself thing. But, like, in some ways it takes a lot of dedication and whatnot. When you get to that higher level with the chemical stuff, there's so much. It's just another variable, but it's a major variable that, and it's very, like, basic but complex. You know, like, I would not expect inflammation from my gear to, like, cause my body to go into shit like that. You know, and that's the things. Look at, again, a guy like Nick Trigili. Or remember when Boston's arm blew the fuck up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was from liquid Winstrol. And remember that year Nick Trigili and Kevin Jordan were talking shit, and then Nick Trigili last minute had to pull out?
Yeah.
That was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, I believe so. And that, too, that was a liquid Winstrol shot. Or water-based Winstrol. And so that type of shit, it fucks you up, you know? And it ends preps, you know? Because I've seen Nick compete multiple times. It's very impressive. But that's exactly it. You get one of those bunk shots. So everyone laughs at Boston, but it's one of those things where that happens. Like I was saying with the kidney issues and whatnot, this is one of those things that happens very often, and people just don't hear about it because a lot of guys aren't going up on stage with that shit, you know?
I think too, a lot of people are so ignorant about things, meaning they don't even do the bare basics to somewhat even look after their health. They'll go out and they'll spend how many $100 on growth hormone every month, but yet they're not going to spend $50 on krill oil or on vitamin C, or, you know what I mean? Like, it just, they don't even want to spend that money for it.
Well, I think, you know, here's my theory, is that I think that the growth hormone use, I think that the guys that are getting the best growth hormone in the quantities that they're able to get it, they get kind of addicted to that shit. I think it fucks with their blood sugar on top of the amount that they're able to eat, so they're eating all the time. Then they have all this, like, blood sugar impact from all this growth hormone. And then I think that puts so much strain on their kidneys that I think that there's a diet-based, like, everyone thinks that it's blood pressure, I think, is, like, the first and foremost easy thing to avoid, like, kidney issues. But I think the second thing is that your diet, you have to start looking at your diet and the dietary stuff. And, like, the guys that do high carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, not mixed with anything, so you're getting, like, a real insulin response. I've seen historically, and I can't, like, name names per se, but, like, I've known pro bodybuilders that have had health complications because I think because of that combination of the growth hormone and the carbohydrates, and they all just taking a strain on the kidneys in a way that you don't really predict. And the thing is it sneaks up on you too. It's one of those things where it could be working great for a while, and then boom. But that much growth hormone though too is like another world.
Well, it's deceiving too, because what it does two things that are counterproductive. So you get such a lipolytic effect that you can eat a shitload of food, but it's also making you type 2 diabetic in the process.
Boom, exactly, exactly.
So, and that's not going to happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, that can still happen
Well, look at Ronnie Rockwell.
Well, but you figure the doses they're using, because, I mean, even a guy on, let's say, work with plenty of people that it's very moderate. It's farm grade or whatever, so the budget's minimum, and it could literally be, let's say, three units a day. Nothing changes in the diet. They're on a moderate carbohydrate diet, and I can literally watch their blood glucose go up 15 points in a couple months.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay, so
and their physique changes too.
Right. Well, yeah, and they look better, but like now make that 15 to 20 units.
Exactly.
And now you're fucked.
That's the thing, is that these guys fail to realize that, yeah, you might have twice as much muscle, but your organs aren't twice the capacity. Like, there's only so much, it's like the joints and whatnot too. There's only so much you can put on them. So you have to, that's one of the things that I respect about a guy like Phil Heath, is that from what I heard is that when he was coming up, he did not need a lot of stuff at all. Like, he was very, very talented. And now that he's at that Olympia level, he's doing whatever he's got to do. But those type of calculated, Davion Hill, Austin, you might be aware of him. Davion? He won middleweights as a junior. He's like my golden.
Oh yeah, I know who he is. He did team nationals too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he won middleweights at team nationals and collegiate nationals. And yeah, freaky. He's like the mix of Dexter Jackson and Phil Heath. Like, he's got Dexter Jackson,
and strong as fuck too.
Strong as fuck. Have you seen his latest videos?
Yeah, I mean, at not even very high body weights, too. It's pretty impressive.
No, he's got because his dad was a natural bodybuilder. His mom is a natural bodybuilder. They're both professionals, and they just have a plan. Like, because his older brother was a natural bodybuilder too, but he wasn't as passionate about it. But Davion's been literally kind of designed to be a bodybuilder. And so he got knocked at that light heavyweight class was one of the most light competitive national class. Like, he got 13th. I was like, oh shit, But then I looked at class. I was like, this is literally one of the best light heavyweight classes. And that was the things like it's interesting because I think Phil Heath and him have a similar type of trajectory of things where you're doing the right things at the right time, making the right improvements at the right level that you need to do. So, like Davion won juniors as a middleweight, he went to that national level as a light heavyweight and came in with a bigger package, a better package. And I think with Phil, you see that too. Every show, up until his Olympia run, he would improve every show to the level of the competition that he needed to be to. Versus now, I think we're just seeing the same thing over and over and over again, because he doesn't need to do as much anymore.
Yeah, and it goes back to how long someone's career is going to be, and that's Phil. He played to his strengths, and like you said, like I said, they really don't give a shit what you've done once you get on stage, and he's kept his body intact, and he could legitimately compete for probably 10 more years if he wanted.
Yeah, really, if you think about it, if he just plays his cards right, it's like we're forcing him into retirement after 3 years or whatnot. But Dexter Jackson, it's just he's such a high caliber of guy that we assume he'll walk away before. But he has every right to compete for another 20 years if he can. So which would be interesting to see, because that would be because even in 2000, have you ever seen those photos from 2006 when he won in Denver and
oh yeah.
Yeah, was it 2006, but with Kai Green?
Yeah.
And Kai Green, it's so interesting to see the trajectories of their career from that point forward, because it's like the difference between first and 16th at that contest is so much but so little at the same time, and that's one of the things I respect about Kai Green too, is that Kai Green has had to figure this shit out, which Phil is the gift, and that's nothing. The good for him that he's gotten the right people at the right times to help get him to the level where he needs to be. Versus I think Kai Green had to fall through the network, and he's just so talented that eventually his talent put him in the position where he was able to finally get recognized by the right people. Boom.
Well, he doesn't need a. I mean, I've never talked to him personally. I don't know that anyone could figure out exactly what's going on inside that head. But at the same time, I mean, financially, he's going to be fine, regardless of what he does. So
he's a millionaire. He's made a million, you know, probably a couple million. I'd hope. But he's definitely had a good. Did you either of you guys seen Generation Iron 2?
Oh, it sucked.
I haven't had much desire. I haven't had a desire to watch it. Is it worth watching?
I haven't watched it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Is I know we're all very into bodybuilding, so I'm glad at least one of us, Alex, has seen it. Alex, so it sucked. Is that what you said?
It sucked ass. They focused on every freaking fitness YouTube star. That was literally the entire movie. It was that Australian guy, Callum, who seems like a great guy, but I'm watching this to see Kai Green, Phil Heath. Like I'm here to see bodybuilders. And they focused, they focused on him.
Guy. He's a cool guy. I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yes, exactly. It's not.
Yeah, but they're talking about his lifestyle on YouTube and Rich Piana on YouTube, and I mean, they focused on Hidi Tada and Iris Kyle for a little bit, but they really didn't even give them that much time on camera. Kai barely had any time on camera, and it was, I think it was like $18.99 to buy, and I had to buy it just to see it, and it was such a waste of money. It was horrible.
Well, you know, I appreciate your investment, so I didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
funny thing is, before I forget, you guys will probably get a kick out of this. So it was NPC Nationals 2014, I think. I think it was in Miami that year, or Fort Lauderdale. It was in Fort Lauderdale that year. So we went, and Rich Piana had a booth, and we were standing there, and my wife wanted to meet him. Okay, so we were just kind of, it was like a small line, but this, you know, bikini girl was up there talking to him, and she looks like she just done a line of coke. She was shaking so bad, looked like she could have fell over at any moment. But she drops her bottle of supplements on the floor. It's a glass bottle. It shatters everywhere. It makes it like glass total mess. Yeah, and Rich is just like, get this fucking lady out of here. And she goes, you know, just looking, but he was polite. He was really polite. She walks up and she goes, are you like on steroids or something?
Oh my God.
Right there in front of everyone, he goes, yeah, a shitload of them.
That's so cool. You know, my
funniest fucking thing.
Exactly. My first interaction was 2013 at the USA's with Rich. And he was there because USA's is like probably my favorite. If you're like a hardcore bodybuilding fan, USA's is a great contest to go to because it's in Vegas. It's kind of like the mini Olympia, but it's like without the fitness people. So it's all the big sponsors are there and whatnot, and like because it's a John Lindsay show, and so if you know bodybuilding, you're going to see all these pros and everything like that. And but like there's none of the bullshit. So like Jay Cutler's hanging out there, always hangs out the second night, and he's just chilling, you know, and there's no, and so that was one things that you go to Rich Piana's booth now, and I was there last year, I think you probably were, and it was like, and it's like out the fucking door, you know, it's the longest one at the entire expo, but at that USA's in 2013, he hadn't started really marketing himself yet, so he was still with Mutant, and I went up and I talked to Rich Piana, he had no idea who I was, just started talking to me. We talked about like the PMMA injections, him going to Mexico. Like it was one of the most candid and like open, honest conversations out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, this guy just like he loves this sport. Like, and so that's the thing is like you can clown on Piana. Like he's definitely not a competitive desire, you know, but I've got a lot of respect for him.
And all the guys in Generation Iron 2. They're all good guys. I don't have anything against them. It was just I bought a bodybuilding movie and expected a bodybuilding movie, and so it really wasn't.
Was Phil Heath in it at all, or what
no?
About Kai Green?
They showed him in the opening credits from the I think it was the 2016 Mr. Olympia, but that was it.
So he wasn't involved in the plot or anything like that?
Yeah, no, he wasn't in at all. It was literally following around Rich Piana and Callum and Hidi Tada.
I would love to know the business model over at Generation Iron of like who's paid for that and who's making money off of it and stuff, because they have a very interesting network over there. And I mean, it almost seems like they hijacked a movie and then they've turned it into this other thing. And I think that's why we didn't see the same type of movie as before, because they took it in a whole different direction. You know, they turned that thing. Generation Iron is one of the best like bodybuilding news networks as far as like hits and stuff. I don't necessarily like their content, but as far as like views and whatnot, and that's just based off of that first movie. So I think that someone has that, and then they knew they could kind of bust out another one.
Well, if you think about it too, just the basics of it, like it was smart of Vlad or whoever it was to focus a lot of or at least put in the YouTube stars, because those are the guys that have hundreds of thousands of followers, you know. So someone
and then he's not having it in theaters too, so you're going to want to focus on this online presence too. Yeah. So I can understand what they were doing, but I can understand also that's why it's not going to be a classic.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like the first one, not the second one.
Yeah, exactly. The first one, as it ages, I give it more credit, you know, because when I was very critical of it when it first came out, but like I see in history how it will fall back, you know, because Pumping Iron is my favorite, one of my favorite movies ever, but definitely my favorite bodybuilding movie. That's probably what largely inspired me to get into the competitive side of things.
Yeah. And sorry to actually cut things off, but we're coming up at an hour here, so we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Because if not, I know the three of us will bullshit forever.
Yeah, exactly. No worries.
So, anything you guys want to close on? Anything we didn't really talk about?
No, man. I think I'm set. I'm pretty much brain dead over here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Austin, are you? How many days now?
7. Well, I mean, today's halfway over, so 7.
There you go.
You know how it goes. Like at the end, you're like, oh, I've got like 36 hours, and I've got like one leg workout.
You're just on autopilot almost right now, aren't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm dialed in. So actually, I started adding in a little bit of food this week back in.
How much do you weigh right now?
How much do I weigh?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, adding the food back in, I kept my fucking metabolism started picking back up. So I hit a low this morning of 195 on the dots, but I'm pretty flat.
You're gonna be like heavyweight.
Yeah, I think legit. Well, the nice thing is I'll be able to load freely and not have to worry about my weight.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that's you can come in exactly like you need to look. You don't need to worry about the weight, you know. And that's the nice thing about landing in that like middle spot there, like. Just be the best. It sounds corny. Be the best you possible, but it's true. You know, I think that's a really good fit for you. I've been looking at your photo. Man, your hamstrings are insane.
Well, yeah, and I was posing the other day, and then I posed with Kenny, and we made some adjustments. And he's I don't know if you ever talked to Kenny. He's like the most bubbly.
I've seen videos. I haven't talked to him personally, but
well, he screenshots your photos when you pose with him. He's like, bro, you gotta fucking see your hamstring in this photo. And he's like, what's your cell number? And he texts it to me. He's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's like the ratio, it's great, man. Like it's got like a good drop to it, everything like that. You've gotten so much bigger over the years, you know, because you've always come in shape, but you've added a lot of quality size as well.
Yeah, and it's like I want to do junior nationals next year, but I know, which I think. Now the thing is, the way, as lean as I am, I'm afraid I'm going to rebound and not be able to make light heavies again.
Yeah, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm 5'8", so legitimately, if I were want to go past juniors, I'd have to be a heavyweight.
Yeah, exactly. I think juniors would be a perfect spot, because you come into juniors in shape, you're automatically going to be at least looked at, you know? And then if everything else is together, you got it.
Yeah, we'll see, man. It's got some time. We'll get this qualification this time and then see how it goes. Do it next year.
Yeah, how are you feeling about this prep so far?
I mean, it's fucking prep, man. It's been brutal. Pretty much bikini girl diet the whole time. So
yeah, bikini girl diet the whole time.
Yeah, that's just the way my body is. I don't really lose tissue that much. I just fucking basically starve and do tons of cardio.
Yeah, I mean, it works.
Yeah, so.
And where's
it
that?
It is what it is, brother. You got to do.
Where's the show going to be at?
Huh?
What's that?
Where's the show going to be at? Just for if any listeners are in the area, they want to come see the show. Where's that going to be at?
Yeah, it's at Dayton, Ohio. It's the Julie Palmer. It's like it's just a regional, just a regional show in Ohio.
Have you done it before?
Well, no, I haven't. That's the reason I'm doing it. I'm actually debating on doing the Michigan State Championships the weekend after because the thing is, my last 2 shows I've been in front of Ohio judges, so I just kind of, I'd like to hit a different judging panel.
Yeah.
Just to see, because I pretty much know they tend to like the conditioning here, so my look normally does pretty good, but I wouldn't mind just hitting some different judges.
This is a weird comparison, but I could see you coming in like a Nicholas Medici, because he's like 5'8", and then if like in a year or two, and you come in as a light heavyweight, but you could have been a heavyweight,
Yeah.
Because he snuck it. He's one of those guys where he's too tall in theory, 5'8" to be a light heavyweight, but he did it, and it worked. And who's that Canadian guy who switched to classic?
Chris Brumstead.
Yeah, but he won North Americans though as a bodybuilder. I could definitely see you sneaking in and doing something like that.
You never know, man. I'm like one of those guys wearing a t-shirt. I'm really wide and broad, so that I train, but I don't have like freaky arms or anything like that.
Yeah, but once you get on that stage,
that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some oil that can help with that stuff too.
Yeah, we'll see. Exactly. We'll fill it up.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, have you been able to use Medform at all during the prep, or did you have to drop it out?
Who, me?
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I don't even have any right now. I had other people that wanted it, so I was like,
here you go.
I just sold some bottles off. But the thing about that stuff too is that in theory, it should stick around, and I haven't, just because of the hyaluronic acid. But to be honest, I haven't really lost a ton of fullness, and
It's a regional show too.
Well, and the thing is, having not messed with any kind of like actual heavy SEO loading before a show, I'm just hesitant to do it now.
No, you don't want to do it this close. But
yeah, it's so I'm just like, fuck it. Everything looks good. My arms are really separated as far as like the tricep hangs down from the bicep and all that. It all looks fine. And the thing is, I have like really peaking, like tall, pointy biceps anyhow.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing too, is that, like I said, it's a regional show. So then you're going into next year, you have a tool in your pocket, like you're working on coming in at a higher level, more muscle, coming in shape, getting, all the supplements lined up and everything like that. And then you got this, on the burner too.
Well, and it's one of those things like, hey, I want to win this show. I want to go in and go for an overall. And if I can't fucking at least get close to that, that pretty much tells me, hey, I'd have more work to do. I shouldn't need fucking, $10,000 worth of shit.
Exactly. Dusty Hansraw told me, Dusty was one of my coaches, and one of the first things he told me was like, he's like, if you need, like, because I was like, am I going to need to take like HGH, insulin, and like site enhancing oil? Because cause I was a natural bodybuilder, so think about how hardcore I thought I was going to have to be. I was like, am I going to have to take this, And he's like, if you need that shit to win a regional show, he's like, this is the wrong sport for you. I was like, okay, like it makes sense. Exactly. So it's one of those things that you just do what you got to do at the level you got to do it at.
Yep. Exactly. Sure. But let's go ahead and wrap it up because we're going to get off on another rant. So for every if they want to follow you anywhere, Waylon, where can they find you at?
Prince Garfunkel right now on Facebook, or Waylon.Martin in the URL thing. Also bodybuilding.news, my YouTube channel, bodybuilding.news, and just in life. You guys can find me. I'm not hard to find.
There we go. And then I'll link everything with this episode too, so it'll be a little bit easier for everyone to follow you. But thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. They appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, man.
Definitely. And everyone, follow us on iTunes, Libsyn, Facebook. We'll see you in the next episode.